Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from YourBlackWorld.com, and today I had a conversation on Hot 97 in New York City. And the question in the conversation was whether or not hip-hop has an influence on young people. A lot of us hear the commercialized hip-hop on the radio. You hear many of the messages that come out that involve drug and alcohol abuse, sexual promiscuity, bad money management, violence, all these other things. And there are some people who believe that it doesn't have an impact, and then there's some people who do. And so we had this conversation this morning, and it was a little bit crowded on the air.
Yeah.
So I thought that I would bring it, go to the after party, the intellectual after party, and invite my homeboy, Dr. Christopher Emdin at Columbia University, who is not only a well-respected scholar within the field of education at Columbia, but he is also a bona fide hip-hop artist. So if anybody knows what's going down with hip-hop, it would be Dr. Emdin. How you doing today, brother?
I'm well, man. Thanks for having me. It's really good to be able to have a conversation after the fact. I love the fact you phrase it as an after party. That's indeed what it's going to be.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I think it was necessary, man, because sometimes with these interviews, man, they put, 4 or 5 cats trying to talk, and then you got the host, and then you got the commercials, and then you got the callers, and you're trying to do all this in 30 minutes, and it's very difficult to have the conversation that needs to be had. And that was part of the reason I worked to create Your Black World. And in case people don't know, it took a lot of energy and a lot of my money, out of my pocket to build this. And it ain't much, but it's ours, it's mine, and I believe that that black people owning the land on which we stand is very important, whether you're talking about media or business or anything else. So this is exactly what we created the platform for. So Dr. Emdin, I want to ask you, first of all, let's start with a simple question. Is hip hop just, the negative hip hop we're talking about here? Is it just harmless? Can kids just listen to it and it just has no effect on them whatsoever? I mean, what is your take on that?
I mean, of course not, man. Of course not. And, this morning when we had that conversation on Hot 97, there seems to be some debate even about that simple piece, whether or not people are actually influenced by hip-hop music and culture. And the answer is, of course they are. People are influenced by anything that's embedded in their context. You're influenced by the movies you watch, the people you hang around with, the books you read, or some people the books you don't read, or the music that you listen to. So, whatever is embedded in your context becomes a part of your subconscious, and what is in your subconscious inevitably will exude what you become. So hip hop, of course it does have an impact on young people, particularly for young, impressionable young people who don't have a family structure to guide their intake or to provide a filter. So yeah, it does, man.
Yeah, well, I think that it's interesting because people will point to the systemic factors that lead to the poverty and the violence and things like that, and talk about that in an isolated space away from the influences of the music, and almost as if one doesn't relate to the other, as if they have nothing to do with each other, or that it's an either or kind of argument. That if you believe that the music impacts the kids, then you're letting the system off the hook. But I don't believe that's the case. I mean, I don't think it's a matter of saying that, that it's the system individual, or that's the music, or that it's just the family structure and all these things. It's all of that, right? I mean, go ahead.
The thing is, it's like the world is messed up. Right? So you can say that we have a jacked up political system where we can't even find the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans anymore, because the nature of how they create policies and sort of create the structure around our lives are pretty much the same. So it's a flawed political system. We could say that it's a function of capitalism, because the record labels want to make money, and the record labels are pushing these images of blackness, which are oftentimes caricatures of blackness, and they sell them back to black folks, and black folks ingest them. And that's a reality as well. We could say it's a function of poverty. The kids are poor, they have broken homes, there's broken families. So there are issues all across the board. But we cannot say because there are issues across the board, it means that we should absolve rappers of a responsibility to provide a different message to young people. And so, where we often are now with folks who are pro-hip-hop is like, listen, there's poverty, there's political issues. I'm struggling. They're challenging issues all across the board. So because of that, you can't blame hip-hop. This is not an issue of blaming hip-hop, but it is to say that hip-hop, if it's a voice of the marginalized populations, has a responsibility to say, listen, not only are these things affecting us, but we're not going to sit down and just take it. We're not going to take those issues and then say, hey, we happy and we riding around and getting it anyway. We're going to say, listen, because of these issues, we're going to talk about how we're being affected. And so, we have to move beyond this saying, the world is so messed up. Woe is us. So because woe is us, we can't blame hip hop. It's not an issue of blaming hip hop. It's saying hip hop has a responsibility to provide a counter narrative.
And I agree with you. I mean, I think that, really it's interesting because, when you talk about what's going on with these systemic factors, you and I write about these things all the time. How bad the educational system is, what's going on with black unemployment, what's going on with mass incarceration, et cetera. But at the same time, another systemic factor is what these corporations are sort of sprinkling onto the black community, this sort of weaponized psychological genocide. And, and I'm sorry, any good psychologist will tell you that if you are a 12-year-old child and you're absorbing a message on a regular basis that says that you should stay high and drunk all the time, you want to have sex with all the women in the world, you want to run around and shoot other black men in the face, you want to waste all your money, you want to act like an idiot, then that's going to be that's going to affect the actions of that child. And a lot of people say, well, no, it won't matter if the child has good parents. Well, I can tell you, I'm a good parent. I love my kids. I give them all kinds of messages, but I see where the music still influences them in certain ways. Even when I'm telling them the opposite, I'm not cool. The parents are not cool. That's not always who the kid listens to. Now, hip hop might not make your child go out and murder somebody. I mean, those are extreme cases. Those are really misguided individuals. The music does play a role for those individuals because I think it can accentuate the very worst in you. But even when you look among kids who aren't going to go out and slang dope or kill anybody, you do see that the way they perceive sexuality is influenced by the culture and the music. The way they perceive, how they're supposed to live their lives, their lifestyle, right? The lifestyle that's promoted mostly in the black community right now through music is one that's based on partying all the time. Everybody's got to be at the damn club on Friday nights. Ain't nobody trying to go to the damn library. Everybody's trying to get to the club and pop bottles because they think that's what people are supposed to do. So when you see that kid go to college, again, I use an example in an article I wrote today where there was a kid, and I remember I saw him grow up. I saw him in high school where he loved songs like Gucci Mane's song Wasted, where he talks about party, 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 let's all get wasted, and basically wake up in the morning drinking. And there was another song by actually the white rapper Asher Roth, where he talked about basically how you get drunk all night and you wake up the next day and you start all over again. And then he says, I love college. Right. So this kid goes to college. And I'm telling him the whole time, look, college is not a big party, man. College is about studying. Well, check this out. This dude goes to college. He almost dies of alcohol poisoning and eventually drops out because he believes in his mind that college is the place where he's supposed to go to every party. And I saw these influences shape him. And even as I gave him a counter view, it was sort of washed out by what he was sort of getting from this culture.
Yep. I mean, this is the thing that folks have to recognize. And you see everything that you described just now becomes the reason why people say hip hop is dead. I ain't worried about hip hop anymore. I'm not focused on hip hop anymore. But I'm arguing that that's the very reason why we have to advocate more for hip hop. You see, if the message is about, because I remember Facebook page. Based on our conversation, I saw you sent a Facebook message about our conversation. I just looked at some of the comments, and the comments said, hip hop is dead. Hip hop is so screwed up. Hip hop is selling these negative messages. And our audience fails to recognize that if we start saying that hip hop is dead, if we start accepting that because of these messages in the music, that there is no more hip hop, what platform do marginalized folks have to speak? None. The thing about hip-hop is that it is the avenue for voice of marginalized people. If you have something that's the avenue for your voice, it is in the best interest of the people who want to oppress you to manipulate that mechanism for your voice. If you then say, you know what, because that mechanism has been distorted, I'm no longer going to use and focus on hip-hop, what have you done? You've acquiesced. You've given the best of who you are over to the person who wants to oppress you and lost an avenue for voice. So the argument is not to use these examples for why hip-hop has a negative value for us to say we wash our hands from hip-hop. It is to say because these folks are talking about hip-hop in this negative way, it's more of a reason why people who have the sort of the intellectual acumen to be like, listen, this is what they're doing to our voice, to take control back over hip-hop. I love college and drinking and partying all the time. It's not a reason to say I give up on hip-hop. It's a reason to say I am going back to hip-hop because I have to work hard to ensure that what its true mission is becomes fulfilled. And that's what the nature of our work is. We have to be able to talk to the folks at Your Black World to say, listen, Just because you don't like the messages and the music that you hear every day doesn't mean that we should just derail hip-hop and talk about how negative it is. That becomes a reason for us to be able to start looking for a counter-narrative within hip-hop so that we can show people what the beauty and the power of the culture is. I mean, I think about an artist like Jasiri X, who's a contemporary artist, who is consistently talking about political issues in hip-hop. I think about an artist like Lupe. Lupe had a song that came out recently called Bad Bitch. Now, you would hear that song and say, you know, what is this young man talking about? Like, he's glorifying the same thing. You listen to that song, he's talking about how rappers are using the phrase bad bitch so often that it becomes ingrained in the psyche of young people. And that when young people ingest that message about bad bitch, when they see a young woman, they don't even know how to interact with her because they view her as a bad bitch. And then he so seamlessly and beautifully weaves this idea of how this young man sees his mother saying, I'm a bad bitch, and how that distorts his images of womanhood. Now, that is a message that hip-hop is giving back to the audience. The issue is that it's not visible. So, in order to make it visible, we as an audience have to say, look, we love hip-hop. Not only do we love hip-hop, we love this message that Lupe is bringing forth. We have to be able to push for the counter-narrative, not wash ourselves of the culture, re-embrace ourselves in it. Because when we wash ourselves free of the culture, that allows the powers that be to create more fantasies of blackness and images of blackness that's negative to ship back to you. You have to be able to be like, you know what? I'm not going to listen to this. I'm not going to give up on hip hop. I'm going to focus on that hip hop that is positive, and I'm going to advocate for it. And that's what you and I are trying to do.
Well, you know, and I agree with you. I mean, and you know, really, the thing is that I know personally I'm not going to give up on hip hop because that's the only kind of music I've ever liked. I didn't listen to music until hip hop really hit the scene. And the thing is, I even like music from artists that I criticize heavily, like Lil Wayne. I understand why people like Lil Wayne because the brother is very, very talented. I just encourage him to take that powerful voice and really speak to some of the issues that I believe lie in the core of his heart. If anybody understands the impact of the prison industrial complex, it would be Lil Wayne, who's gone to prison. You know, why not?
After his record deal. That's also really important.
Yeah, there you go. Or if anybody understands violence, it's Lil Wayne. I mean, you know, and I was telling you when we went to Detroit that time, remember we visited the school and then we visited the prison and you were commenting on how they're so similar. And I remember I was telling you about a really great Lil Wayne song that he did with The Game. And he's really, you know, they're really going deep about why they don't understand the violence that's around them. And basically, you know, I think one of the lyrics was something like, please tell me why the hood feeds off evil and answer this question before I pull out my Desert Eagle. And it was like basically saying like, I need to understand this because all I know how to do now is cope with this. And I don't know where this is coming from. Why does life have to be this way? And I like that song. I think it was a great way to really express what so many black men are really feeling when you feel that you can't exist without having to fight through some sort of cultural tornado where you can be shot just by going to get a tank of gas. You can get killed by just going to a party. You can date the wrong woman and be killed by her baby daddy. You know, you can go to prison for almost anything. You know, your schools are inferior. You know, so I think that artists, I don't think it's a stretch to ask artists to address these issues. You can still be, as you mentioned earlier on Hot 97, you can be gangster and still even be a gangster social deviant, whatever the hell it is you are, and still do what's natural, which is to advocate for the people that you care about. There's, you know, most gangster dudes, even guys that are in gangs, they join gangs because maybe they have a sense of family, a sense of loyalty and love for those for whom they advocate. So why not just, you know, mold the message a little more, you know, and challenge yourself to think a little more and continue to be who you are. Just do it in a way that's going to lead to productive outcomes as opposed to destructive outcomes.
And you know, this is why we study this stuff in academia. I was listening to a song the other day by Scarface and Nas, and the idea behind the song was, you know, F hip hop, I F hip hop. That was Scarface and Nas' argument. And one of the lines by Scarface was, he was talking about hip hop in a sort of narrative, and he said, I fell out of love with hip hop, pretty much he was saying, and then he was saying that, you know, now she's being studied by the college professors, and because of that is why I fell out of love with her. And I'm saying to this cat, we need to be having hip hop studied by the college professors so we can focus back on the beauty of the culture. Because right now, a lot of MCs aren't pushing the nature of the culture forward. So we need a crop of folks who are saying, listen, let's push this agenda forward. If you fell out of love with hip hop, the reason for you to fall back in love with it is because now it's being deconstructed and shaped in a new way. And you're right. There's no limit on the amount of subject matter that MC could talk. Why is it always about the same topics? You know what I'm saying? Why is it always money, cash, hoes, bling, and riding around and getting it? Like, why can't we have a more expansive sort of notion and nature of the culture? And some cats are doing this. The thing I want people to understand is that some people within hip hop are doing this. I listened yesterday to. I woke up in the morning. Check my email because I got my ear in these streets. So I got my mentees. Anything that there's a new hip hop song that's out, my email box get flooded with it on a consistent basis. I got a 15-minute song by Slaughterhouse. Slaughterhouse is Joel Ortiz, Crooked Eye, Joe Budden, and Royce the 5'9" from Detroit. So all these MCs from different parts of the country coming together, creating a sort of hyper-lyrical group. And the song was 15 minutes of pure therapy. Talking about being young, black, and oppressed, talking about losing a child, talking about your baby mom's having cancer, talking about the relationship that you have with an audience, talking about growing up in poverty, like all these beautiful narratives about the black experience that are pushed by these MCs. But the thing is, you will not hear it on the radio. You just won't. It's not going to happen. And so, part of this work also has to be, how do we advocate for and show forth a voice of hip hop that's a counter narrative in a public space where people can realize that there's more to it. And that's what we do every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. with Hip Hop Ed on Twitter. And I got to pull you on there to be a host of that conversation sometimes, because every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. we're saying, listen, we're not going to allow this message about the culture to just die. We are going to have a critical deconstruction of hip hop. We're going to pick an artist or a group of artists that are doing things that are positive, and we're going to talk about this work and ask questions about it and think about it deeply and show it to an audience across the globe who are looking for hip hop education, intellectualizing of the culture. And those are the kind of spaces that we need to advocate for. Because if we don't do it, we're not going to get it. The Hot 97, despite the fact that they gave us a platform to have a conversation this morning, they'll talk about it with us for an hour that's interjected with commercials and interjected with, groups promoting themselves and interjected with whatever else. But they're not going to give us a space to really have this true conversation because it's not in their best interest. I'm trying to see a Young Black World record label, bro. I'm trying to see, I'm very serious. Your Black World promotional team, where we're saying, you know what, in conjunction with selling images of what black people really are like to our audience, we're also going to highlight an artist a week, an artist a month that is going beyond this existent narrative and showing the beauties and complexities of black folks in hip hop culture.
Well, I love what you're saying, and actually the joke you made about the Your Black World record label is not really a joke. I mean, it's not that far of a stretch. We actually are right now, working partnering with Janks Morton on the release of the film Hoodwink, which is basically a conversation about what's really going on with black men in America. And our mutual colleague Mark Lamar Hill, he's on the film along with myself and Steve Perry. And you really should have been in there. I'm gonna lobby for you, man, to be in whatever the next project is that comes up. And and it's an amazing discussion because it allows us to really see what's really going on with black men. And I agree. I mean, if we don't advocate for black men, nobody's going to advocate for us. Malcolm told us a long time ago, nobody will ever really give you your freedom. Nobody really gives you power. You got to go out there and take it. And so, I see you as a fellow, soldier in this battle. So, that's why I respect you, man. Well, I guess we've been talking longer than we expected to. So I truly appreciate you, taking this time, to speak with me on this, brother. Thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure, man. Anytime. I mean, we can have a series of 50 discussions on this topic. There's so many more aspects of it that we haven't even touched upon yet, because it's just that deep. It's just that complex. It's as complex as who we are as human beings.
Absolutely, man. And this is not the last conversation we're going to have. I got a lot of things that I want you and I to work on together. And I think that, and people want to know what our interest is, what our agenda is. Our agenda is to use all of that stuff that they shoved in our brains from all those years of school and give that back to the people that we care about. And that's pretty much what we're
absolutely.
And whether people believe it or not, we are the runaway slaves on the plantation, because when you up in academia, man, they do not encourage this kind of involvement. So I applaud you for being a fellow soldier, my brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated, man.
Yes, and thank you all at Your Black World for hanging out with us. And until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone.
You know,